Now, the thing about this war is that for the past 8 years, China and the United States have been attacking each other. There are two main mechanisms in which China attacked the United States. The first mechanism is by restricting the supply of rare earth minerals to the United States. Because as you can see from this chart, China actually produces most of the rare earth minerals. Now you may not know this, but actually rare earths aren't that rare. The problem is in the extraction. It is very expensive. It is very immensely costly. China is willing to pay these costs. The rest of the world isn't. That's why China has essentially a monopoly over lithium, cobalt, graphite, and other rare earths that the EV industry, the solar industry, the semiconductor industry are heavily dependent on. Okay? That's the first attack vector. Second attack vector is China appreciates that China's value to the global economy is that it purchases a lot of US dollars. So then China started to buy more gold, okay? So you can see how the US treasuries went down, but then gold went way up, okay? And so this is the way that China is trying to exert pressure on the United States. The problem is that China is much more vulnerable to attack than the United States, okay? The United States is a hallucination, but China is a hallucination of a hallucination. The first thing to appreciate is that China's energy dependence is huge. China uses twice as much energy as America for its manufacturing sector in order to create exports. Therefore, China is vulnerable to embargoes and sanctions, okay? And so what America is doing right now with this war in the Middle East by kidnapping Maduro in Venezuela, it's basically choking China off from its energy supply. Okay? That's one problem. Second problem is that China is very export orientated. Okay? So the entire economy is just basically on exporting manufactured goods cheaply to the rest of the world. And you can tell because most of the world's business ports are actually based in China, okay? The business is Shanghai, followed by Singapore, Ningbo, Shenzhen, Qingdao, Guangzhou. Okay, so 5 of the world's top 6 export hubs are based in China. That shows you China's dependence on exports. But if America is controlling the seas and controlling strategic choke points like the Strait of Malacca and the Strait of Hormuz and Strait of Gibraltar, Panama Canal, this creates a huge problem for China. Okay? And the third thing is how much resources China uses. China, in only 3 years' time, okay, from 2011 to 2013, used more cement than America did in 100 years. That's crazy to think about. All right? So this shows you how dependent China is on the global economy. It also shows you how dependent China is on the USD. Okay? Because it's only because the renminbi can be exchanged for the USD that allows China to purchase so many resources from abroad. All right. The reality is that China is too dependent on America. This is something that Chinese policymakers have been trying to change for the past 10 years. It doesn't work because what Chinese policymakers don't understand is that you're in a hallucination of a hallucination. Okay? You only exist because America created you. All right, so this is consumer confidence. You can see, so 2018 is when the trade war started, okay? And at this time, people are still okay. They're still bearing the brunt of it. But then COVID happened, right? And then you saw this massive drop. And it never really recovered, guys. All right? It never really recovered. Consumer confidence. People don't believe the economy is doing well. People are not willing to buy things. People aren't working. People are losing income. All right? The economy is not doing well. At the same time, this is really interesting, more and more Chinese students are choosing to study abroad, even as the economy is failing. Even as though there are less and less opportunities to do well in China, more and more Chinese are going to America to study. And guess what? Not the very best are not coming back, okay? There's a gap of about 1 million students who stay in the West, and these are often the very best students, right? So I hate to say this, but if you're hallucination, you're anxious. You want to go back to the source, right? So you know the renminbi is based on US dollars. If you can change the renminbi for US dollars, you will do so. If you can flee the country, immigrate abroad, you will do so. All right, this is a pretty stark data, okay? So this shows you the current account balance. Current account just basically means how much Chinese have in the bank due to trade. This is the trade account, okay? How much Chinese actually traded. The blue tracks the current account, okay? How much Chinese have in the bank because of the trade. The red tracks the actual trade, okay? As you can see, for most of China's history, up until about 2022, it tracks pretty closely. But starting in 2022, there's this divergence, a huge divergence. It's about $500 billion a year, guys. Why is this happening? Capital flight, money laundering. People are using exports in order to move their money out of the country. It's a very simple thing where, okay, maybe I buy a refrigerator from you, right? It should be $500. We're good for $500, but you charge me $1,000. Why? Because then you take the $500 and you put that money on my behalf into a US real estate. You buy property or buy stocks from me, okay? Does that make sense? This is all just money laundering. Okay. So in other words, what's really driving China's export mania, a lot of it is just money laundering as people try to flee the country. Okay, so this is not good for China. All right, another major problem in China is the household savings rate, where it's the highest in the world. Okay, the highest in the world. Why are Chinese savers? Why are they saving 40% of their income? Well, a lot of reason is because Chinese aren't that wealthy, okay? So even though the Chinese economy has boomed these past 30, 40 years, the Chinese individual has not seen a huge improvement in his standard of living, okay? And so there is not a great confidence in the future, and that's why Chinese save a lot of their money. And there are that many investment vehicles as well. So from a US perspective, this is a great opportunity, right? If Chinese are saving all this money, if you're a financier, if you're like Blackstone or BlackRock, you're like, why don't I give it to me and I'll invest the money for you and give you bigger returns, right? This is why they're here in China, because they want this. They want all that capital stored in Chinese banks, not doing anything. They're like, give it to us, and we'll make you more money, okay?